La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buongiorno.
Good morning. I'm really happy that this series of meetings at 1 o'clock could give us the opportunity to talk about new experiences and projects at school. And these experiences were recounted by those who actually implemented them. We heard experiences from all around the country, Caltanissetta, Biella, Bolzano. So today, this is the closing 1 o'clock meeting, and it is an extraordinary way to close this series with a very important theme, that is to say the synergy of the territory with the school and educational parts. The title is a classroom as big as the city and the world. So this is a very important theme, and I will introduce it in a few minutes. And it is important also because we have very distinguished guests with us that can share their extraordinary experiences with us. Eugenio Paterlini from the Municipality of Reggio Emilia. The Municipality of Reggio Emilia has a long history in terms of education and support to education. Then we have Federico Samaden, who is the president of the Foundation Demarchi, and he is also the principal of a school in Levico Terme in the region Trentino.
Che vive sul campo la battaglia.
So he's one who's really fighting the educational battle on the ground. And then we have Paolo Andreolli, who's also a principal of a training professional school in Valdobbiadene. I was saying this is an extraordinary theme because after the experience of the COVID pandemic, during which the school was completely overwhelmed by events, and then distant learning, the use of all the technologies that were needed, well, all this actually uprooted traditional school systems. And with this crisis, the theme of education became much more topical. People started to understand that school is not an accessory for our society, but rather something that is fundamental. And we also realized that schools needed to find new allies locally in order to carry out its task. So that's how I came to know about some experiences. One is that of Reggio Emilia, and Eugenio Paterlini is going to talk about it, with the so-called diffused school. It is a very specific and particular project. Eugenio, you have the floor. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you all. I'm really happy to be here today. It's the first time for me at the Rimini meeting, even though I've always been following this event for years. And I found a really striking reality. I would like to thank all the volunteers that welcomed us when we arrived. I'd like to thank you all for being here today. And while I was arriving, I was thinking, what can we find as common ground between the history of the municipality of Reggio Emilia and the history of the meeting. So I think that the title that was chosen for this year meeting is a common element, the passion for the person. The municipality of Reggio Emilia invests a lot in human beings, in human resources, and particularly we invest in that very specific group of the so-called citizens of tomorrow, even though they are already citizens today in our present, young children, teenagers, young people. Reggio Emilia, maybe some of you know that, is famous for its services for younger children from 0 to 6 years of age. And we have also tried to enlarge this sector of services to all the different levels. So I deal with primary and secondary school from 6 to 14 years of age. So these are services that accompany the educational path of schools. So school plays a central role in Italy, public school as well as other schools that create the complex scenario of Italian education. The school is fundamental but needs to be supported, because if we leave the school alone, the school will not be able to face emergencies and challenges. In Reggio Emilia, we tried to create a whole educational system to support schools. So that's what I'm here to talk about today, and I'm here to represent all my colleagues. We have about 200 educators who work together with the teachers every day in the challenge that is the integration of disabled young children, and many other challenges that aim at making school more effective and efficient. And then I will talk about my project, but we all do this thinking that there isn't just one body, one institution, one group of professionals that take care of education, but there are so many different skills and know-hows, public and private entities that work together in everyday life, and this is the only way to actually face the educational challenges of our times. So today I'm going to talk about a project that has been an experience that started during the dark days of the pandemic, because the COVID pandemic really put our educational system to the test, even though it is a system that has a high quality level, because in a few days there were no more opportunities to meet in person and between the adults and the children and the teenagers of this system. And in the summer 2020, in a few months, we had to decide what we wanted to do. Can we go back to school, or is it too dangerous? The municipality has this kind of competence. We don't have any direct competence on the curricula or on the teachers, but we can organize the school system. So we asked ourselves, can we really organize a school that respects all the safety measures for the pandemic? So what can we provide our children with in order to face this pandemic? So we tried. I was not alone, and there are so many people with whom we have worked together, a lot of professionals from different sectors that actually come up with the best ideas. And normally the ideas that are devised by just one single person are not the best ones. So we decided that we couldn't let the emergency overwhelm us, and we decided to start and try a new educational system with, new spaces, reusing old classrooms or abandoned buildings to create new teaching spaces. But we also collected all the best energies in our city so that they could take care of this educational system that needs much more than just new classrooms. It needs new skills to accompany the children in this very difficult moment in our history. So we went and looked for private entities, associations, hotels in the countries, even the former seat of the Bank of Italy. We went to the parishes and we asked for premises, but we also asked all these entities to participate in preparing a new school curricula. We called it the pandemic curricula because it was clear that children shouldn't just go to school and have lessons, but they should also be able to enjoy all the opportunities that these new places entailed. These were qualified places because they were in a way natural classrooms that sometimes were even more beautiful than the ordinary classrooms, but also because that this meant meeting people that had skills, that were curious about children, and that could therefore create a new teaching and learning system. And that was really useful also, as we managed to realize afterwards, for those children who had problems with the traditional learning process. And I have a very short video that can explain better than I could what we did in summer 2020, and we then brought forward to 2021.
Eugenio, io ti ringrazio.
Eugenio, thank you so much. When I found an article in a magazine dedicated to this diffused school project, I became really curious. So I went to Reggio Emilia and I went to that country house that you saw in the video where the location was really extraordinary in the middle of nature. The young kids were learning how to grow plants. And then there was the grandfather who was actually the owner of the house who was teaching them. So this is the added value of this project that went beyond the big premises that could avoid contagion, but it was mainly the fact that it enhanced the richness of the territory, which is actually this knowledge, the same knowledge of this elderly man who said very proud, I have now 32 grandchildren, because he taught them how to sow and to water plants and to feed the chicken and so on. So Federico, I know that on this theme you are quite an expert. So you believe in the opportunity for the local entities to participate in education. Good morning. I really feel at home when I'm here at the meeting, so I'd really like to thank you, because it's really a precious opportunity for me to come here. I believe that we are talking a lot lately about teaching community. It's some kind of fashionable. And I must say I'm a little bit cautious when there are these fashionable concepts. But anyway, in a place like the Rimini meeting, this is something we have been always worked with. In this great big school of the meeting, this is something we have always worked with. If you have a child, you need a village. This is not something new. And this is a principle that too often has been neglected. Those who talk about teaching communities now, well, what were they doing when we started talking about this at the Rimini meeting? I am a very simple person, but God gave me a lot of gifts. I was lucky enough to live 25 years of my life in San Patrignano, founding and managing the seat in tent. And so I really had a powerful experience. And I have been now managing the Professional Institute for 13 years, and they asked me now to participate in the work of the Demarchi Foundation in the region Trentino. So I am always reminded that God continues loving me and giving me gifts, and I try to do my best to make something useful, to do something useful. So what I really understood with my experience is that education is something that inhabits each and every one of us. It's the human dimension when we meet our fellow human beings, whether it is on the basis of the educational process. So the quality of the educational process depends on this relation. Then there are structures that host these processes, and often structures sort of forget this origin. So we have to go beyond school somehow, because many schools, in a way, forgot about the power of the educational soul in the strong relation between a teacher and a kid. And you then wonder what you can do for this kid, not so much to have him be successful in a certain subject, but rather to help him face his life or her life. So that's why we talk about regions, territories, local entities, because if there is something that we have to bear in mind, is that this relationship is not the responsible of just one single place or person. The first generating place of this process is a family, but there are so many other elements, and so we can talk about teaching communities in this sense. We can talk about territories, but this shouldn't be another overstructure that is going to encumber this very delicate theme. So we need to stimulate, to recreate the preconditions that will make people find back their original flame, the same flame that moves each and every one of us when we are in front of a kid for whom we wanted to do something positive. So we needed to look for what is good for children, not only their performance. The good of children and kids goes well beyond marks and bulletins, and this is what actually creates educational process. We talked a lot about this. We talk a lot about this also in San Patrignano, and we can go and see how these things happen concretely in everyday life without having to build any kind of a philosophical thought about this. With the Demarchi Foundation that I have the honor to chair, I started to think how we could help local entities, and with a group of researchers, we created an index of educational skills, and then we will have the result of the work this group did at the beginning of September. And I will start to compare these results, because this index, I believe, is a method, is a way to stimulate the public administration to understand that something needs to be done, and it needs to be done well. And in order to know that you're doing things correctly, you need to assess the result and the impact of what you're doing. So this index is what could be used for, and then there are indicators that are connected with the different tools. So we often have the illusion that these territories, this word territory, what does it actually mean? We're talking about people, because in the territories, from educational point of view, there are really terrible educational realities. It doesn't mean that having a territory means that there is an educational process. This is a responsibility that we all share. So only if we recreate among us this syntony, this synergy, this love and passion, this convergence of what is good, that we actually orient towards those who come after us, then we can actually achieve something. So this is the great challenge I am facing at the moment. Yes, we have a pragmatic system with our indexes and indicators, and I'm really focused on the theme of skills, because what is the great heritage of a territory? It is what the people living there can do. But it is very difficult to measure what people can do. So I created a system to actually assess this and to see what people can actually do. What can all of you do? Each of you is a source of knowledge. The older you are, the deeper the source you are. So if all of you could be part of this circular economy project that it revolves around the concept of circular strategy, an 80-year-old can teach something to a 20-year-old, and how can these processes take place? So this is what I've been focusing on lately. But we need also powerful alliances that go beyond agreements put on paper. We need agreements among people, persons. The uniqueness of the educational process needs to be based on alliances. I look for people, I look for persons rather than institutions who just sign partnership agreements. And I believe that we all need to do our best. We are a great resource, and the meeting as well as San Patrignano are great resources.
Thank you very much, Federico. Inside this dynamics of the relationship between the educational pathway and the territory, from the point of view of schools, for the school, the territory, which is the world, enters in various ways. One of these ways is that the traditional school attended by Italians over the last 20 years has become an interethnical, intercultural school. I know the school where Paolo comes from has over 40% of students with different nationalities, 19 different nationalities, 20 nationalities in a school can be found nowadays. And then another way in which the territory gets into the school, or vice versa, is that in professional schools, where the territory enters the schools through apprenticeship, through stage, where part of the educational pathway takes place in companies located in the territory where the school is also located. So I now leave the floor to Paolo for telling us, to tell us a little bit more about the situation. Thank you very much for having me. I am the reverse direction, so to say. Thanks to the institutions and those working along with the stakeholders in the territory, the added values were identified. What is the usefulness? What is the benefit for the school if the school opens up the classrooms to the territory? Where is the benefit for the school? Well, thank God, the reality approached us in Valdobbiadene, in the professional schools for catering services. We realized that the most effective moments were the events in which our students had the possibility to have an interface with external players, stage, and then all the collaborations which were created with the partners we got to know, and they wanted to know more about our school. We have an ACE up our sleeves, which is the restaurant and catering related activity, which is a core activity and a core teaching of our schools. So we had a chance to get to know companies in Valdobbiadene, wine producing establishments, and they wanted to know us. So when we organize a small buffet service, when we organize a small event for the wineries which already know us and want to present our school and to introduce our school to their guests, we saw that the students could learn better. So the territory is an added value. The classroom opens up because we are the first ones to be interested in analyzing what happens to our students in certain contexts. And we realized that after some initial reluctance, teachers, of course, want to protect their environment, but we realized that the beautiful part of education was going out of the classroom, meeting other people, learning, having the hands-on, and the students organizing and working during a little catering knew better. They were working. They remembered what they had learned better, and they reasoned along with us, and they became responsible persons, even more than they were during the activities carried out in the classroom. And they were more aware of what happens in a real situation, and they became more eager to make proposals. And so we started to increase our occasions of opening up the classrooms, and we created new opportunities, such as the effect dinners, in collaboration with winemakers, with local sommeliers, with local chefs, and through dinners with real guests, who then evaluate the service, the students had a chance to really understand what they had learned in the classroom. These are wonderful experiences, but we also said there's something missing in it, because the risk was that of having an individual teacher being willing to carry out this kind of activities with no follow-ups or just a few moments in the everyday teaching activity of the school. Bearing in mind effectiveness, we understood that schools need to work in a coordinated way and unitedly to have a look at the teaching activity according to this new perspective, really opening up to the world, an interested kind of opening. And then the benefits come as a consequence, because you have a multiplying effect when it comes to ideas. And so we started to introduce these privileged moments within the annual teaching activity. There is no longer a difference between school teaching and extra school teaching. There are no more distinctions between the activities carried out within the classrooms and activities carried out outside the classrooms. There is no distinction when you take the students to get to know how honey is made, or how wine is made, or the evaluations that we receive from the companies is equally important as the evaluation, as the scores, as the notes given by the teachers. Of course, you do need a facility. You need planning when it comes to teaching activities. But with time, this new vision brought many benefits and many advantages, because some collaborations became stable. And every year they are proposed again and again to the students. And some moments of a broader scope for the closed classroom have become a profitable moment, a profitable teaching moment for all the students. And all the teachers, though having a codified structure within a school, all the teachers were part of this process. I'll give you an example. To organize a dinner, you do not only need to know how to create a menu, prepare all the dishes and serve them properly. You also need to write the menu properly. This is a task carried out by the Italian teacher. And the English teacher started to translate the menus into the English language. Then the mathematics teacher processed the food cost, which was a real processing of the food cost linked to that specific event. And so this was what led to the open classroom. The reality was no longer external. The entire school starts to be projected towards what is outside, and all the students got increasingly curious, increasingly interested, and they became a driving force for the school, because they started to think about catering for external guests, and they were stirred to do better and better. And so they became persons who were able to judge, and they became the key players of their own educational pathway. Some activities, of course, have a privileged place. According to the service learning definitions, all the activities having some repercussions for the common good. When students come across evident needs, they are even more eager to work and to do better. And so this leads to a willingness to be the key player, to be the protagonist. Students start to have more skills, but they really begin to become the key players when it comes to the knowledge and the skills they acquire. And this creates a circularity. It creates a driving force, it creates desire, it creates interest, and this opportunity then becomes interesting for everybody. So our work, our job, instead of allowing these opportunities to be fully exploited. So we need to set our egos aside, and we need to grasp the reality which is bigger and which is more interesting than our closed classroom. So having a possibility is really something interesting. Thank you very much, Paolo. Thank you. Well, I think that there is no more suitable definition of education than that of the title of this year's meeting. Education is a passion for the person, and you explained it perfectly. A second remark I wanted to make after the first round of contributions is that we're living in a world in which our boys and girls are at risk of having a fragmented life, of living a life in closed compartments. At school, you have the rules of the school. With the friends, you live according to different rules, so the rules of the friends, then the rules of the family, the rules of the sports activities. But as one of the colleagues said, in all this fragmentation of life, you have a risk. A good guy may become a monster all of a sudden. And the root of this problem lies in the fragmentation of life. The young people adopt the rules and the principles of that specific environment they are at that moment. But their ego, their person, as Federico said rightly, is sort of buried beneath all these different settings. So opening up the schools, opening up the classrooms has to do with the call for education. I was impressed when you said, Eugenio, earlier, that the diffuse school project was created because of the COVID-19 restrictions. But the outstanding thing is that when the COVID pandemic was almost over, the project continued. So we used this system that we invented in the summer of 2020. We had a chance to provide for new, wider school spaces, which were also rich in contents. 80% of the success of this project was related to the opportunity to meet the students. Adults met the students, and then I would like to make an in-depth analysis of this element. It was a reception process and a gift, in a sense. As I said, we involved about 100 classrooms, about 2,500 students of the primary school. Imagine what it means to involve primary school students, pupils, and secondary school pupils. Secondary schools are organized according to the various subjects, and there is not too much attention being devoted to the unity of the knowledge and the unity of students. So the schools of Reggio Emilia were involved in this debate. It is not just a debate related to teaching or education. It is a cultural debate. What is education? Who are the persons responsible for education? And we think clearly, we are convinced, we believe, that the educational responsibility lies within the whole community. It cannot be simply assigned to teachers. And then we thought about what could happen when the pandemic would come to an end, when the COVID-19 becomes a sort of a memory. Well, our fear is that many teachers would ask us to go back to the previous situation. But this was not the case, luckily. We had many classrooms. We had many classes, many pupils, and many teachers who asked us to remain within this kind of experience, to continue with schooling outside the schools, with competencies and skills of the adults other than the teachers. The teachers, of course, are the fulcrum. They are always present, but the teachers also use skills and competencies of other people, of other adults living in the territory, and little by little, with some clashes as well, it is possible to find new agreements, qualified agreements, to improve the teaching process. And so we will continue with these activities in the next school year. We will continue to inhabit some of these places. We increase the number of farm houses available. We increase the number of parish facilities available to welcome and to receive the students, so that the parishes become the core of civic education. Civic education means many different things. Civic education, in our opinion, takes place especially whenever there is an opportunity to know the world of solidarity, of activities carried out for free. And we found a big response in this respect in our area. And so we will continue with these activities. Some classes and some classrooms will remain in those places, but some classes will carry out a rotation kind of activity. Part of the school year will be spent at school, and part of the school year will be spent in other facilities, so as to put in practice what they've learned, what the students have learned in these other environments. I wondered why this passion and this affection was created in this period. I do not believe this is a comfortable way to work. Those working in the diffuse schooling system work more. They work longer hours. Just imagine how long it takes to reach an agreement between adults and not working in schools with the teachers and with the students. And what is required is a lot of work related to the documents. We need to keep track of all the reactions of the pupils, and we need to have the courage to change the proposals when the pupils do not accept them. It is not a trivial aspect. The municipal administration is investing resources. Of course, you may understand that not everything is given for free, but I think that the reason for the success of this project lie in the dimension I was mentioning earlier, welcoming, receiving, and donating, and giving something as a gift, receiving the kids, the students, giving children and young boys and girls the opportunity to go back to school in presence, open the hearts of many, and then the gift on the part of the community, because the community gave for free skills, knowledge to the students. But we also discovered that the town became richer when it decided to welcome and receive the pupils, and it became more aware of itself. Catering for young people, catering for children is a duty related to the citizenship. And the town became richer because all the places that were touched by the pupils, and we have documents about this, end up being changed, modified. The person we saw in the farmhouse decided to convert his activity into a teaching farm with children, thanks to the projects that we started to carry out with him. As for the museums, and this is a very important result, the museums in Reggio Emilia are an important cultural reality in the region. They rank third among the most visited museums of the region. The heads of the museums decided to create guided tours of the museum, starting to consider what the children said when they visited the museum. So this dimension enriched the town in general because it focused on the most important aspect, even more important than the GDP, working on the human capital, which is strengthened and which grows not only through the economic activity, which remains important, but also thanks to this comparison of ideas and this exchange, which made us all stronger as a community, and we managed to exit from this very dark period we've been experiencing. Thank you very much.
I'd like to make some kind of promotional campaign, inviting you all to go and have a look at this experience. Yes, just like Alberto came, we would like for you all to come, and it's a very nice location, a very nice region. The food is great, so yeah, you're all invited. Federico, according to your opinion, what are the perspectives of this relationship between the territory and the school system? So apart from all the difficult issues, what are the positive aspects? Well, I am actually an optimist. Otherwise, I would have not survived in my life. And I've always trusted that things can turn out for the better. So there is one main doubt that I have, that is to say, the fact that individuals should be open to use this skill that they have, that is to say, that every one of us has, that is to say, to look at those who are in front of us, looking for their good. So there is no procedure, no process for this, but we need to make positive energy circulate. We need to meet people, meet their passion, and this is how you can build places around people. It's a bit like starting from or going back to the Benedictine monasteries. These what schools should be. Schools should understand that at the moment this is what we need. That is to say, to create places, but places that are different as they to what they used to be, where pupils were rather could either have good notes or bad notes, and these are places of great educational sharing. This is the great challenge that we all need to face. And how can we do this? Well, I don't know exactly. I only know that in my life, everything I've been doing looked sometimes very difficult to overcome. Since I was 20, I was sharing my life with young people who had lost their sense of life. And I did understand that things happen if you focus on what you can do rather than on these unsurmountable problems. That is one thing I would like to be quite positive. If territories are rightly encouraged, one single person can recover one thing, that is to say, to be able to do their job in the best possible way. And if you think about it, it's quite simple, and it's something that everyone can do. That is to say, to do your job in the right way. So, well, this in a way is the teaching system. If you have a child that grows up in a place where everyone he or she meets knows what it means to do things in the right way, well, this child will grow well, knowing that they are always encouraged to go towards what is good. So I think this is something that needs to be constantly promoted. Everyone have their role to play. I do what I do with the gifts that the Lord gave me, and thanks also to the role I can play in certain institutions and in certain realities. This is the main challenge. But there is also another aspect that needs to be taken into account, that is to say, the need to make people understand what they can do, because there are so many people out there who are not valorized in their skills. There are so many elderly people who are sent to homes for the elderly. They are assisted, they are cared for, but their knowledge, what they know, where does all this go? Anyone would know that they could teach something, that they have a lot to say, and there's still a lot they can give. So we really need to give back to the people the value that they have put together during their lives. And from the educational point of view, I do believe that what we can do is to fill our backpacks. These backpacks, when it is full, we can pass it on to our children or to someone that will then carry it after us. And that backpack contains all the things we have believed in, all the things that were part of our lives. So we really have to preserve what we have received. And then this child, it could be our own child, receives a gift, and they take this backpack and they're going to use it during their life. You cannot imagine how often, also thanks to Facebook and other tools, I can really be in contact with so many young people who lived in San Patrignano over the last 20 years. And it is really moving. It makes me cry when I receive these messages, young people who tell me, do you remember that day we were in the garden and you told me something that I didn't want to understand at the time? Well, now I have understood. Now I have understood what you meant. So this is something that maybe could happen after 10 or 15 years, but this gives us the right dimension of what we have to do. We have to fill our backpacks and then pass it on to everyone that comes after us, because this backpack contains the truest part of ourselves, and we need to feed it, because none of us is perfect, and this should help us to face our fear that we are worthless. So this is the meaning of a place like this, or of other places in the world, where we actually feed this very deep and profound part of every one of us. So this is where skills are called upon. We created an app which is called Lo So, I Know, and it will be launched during the month of September. It is connected to another important app called Migrants, and it's an app created by an African kid, Chris Richmond, in order to ask migrants what are their skills and what they can do. So we have a strong pact with him. He has 400,000 migrants on the platform that are learning 3 hours a day, and I bought the digital architecture to create a platform that is dedicated to teenagers and to Italian people, and it is called Lo So, I Know. So in September and October, we will promote, so to speak, this important platform to schools where, well, a young person can actually say what they're able to do. I can play an instrument, I can climb, I can play soccer, whatever a young person can do that cannot be actually assessed at school. So the curriculum of the CV of a young person comprehends all this. So I do believe this is a very important tool, and I trust that the school will acknowledge its value. And I would also take this opportunity to add that more than a speech in a conference, this means that I have really brought the deepest part of me to a place that I feel like my own home. So we should not be alone in this. Let's get together. Let's look one for the other. Let's give soul and life to these places, to the territories. Let's do it together. Because only by acting together, by recreating these strong relationships, we can actually make it. Thank you.
Paolo, dal punto di vista della scuola, allora qual è la prospettiva di fronte?
So, after this these suggestions by Eugenio and Federico, what is the starting point? Well, the heart consists of the young people. A classroom as big as the world is the title of today's event. I would like to add, like, as big as the world of young people. Because when we propose educational projects, activities that do not look at young people, but look back to an an old world, well, they cannot be successful. This is an interesting task for our teachers, and it is a challenge. And everything is then shaped on this, because the world of young people is a world that is interesting for me as a teacher, a world where I discover what is really needed in the heart of other people with whom I work every day. So, well, this is a way to discover what these people have to give, what the young people have to give, what they think of themselves. So this classroom becomes a place where people meet, not only with other external actors, but with the young as well. Some activities are particularly interesting. During the first year, our most difficult issue was to really, meet them and have a contact with them, to create a relationship based on trust. And this is what we do by getting to know them. These 19 ethnic groups opened up our opportunity to know this reality. So we said who we were, what we wanted, and we looked at these young people in the eyes, and we showed them the educational proposal in this classroom, in this school. And then we said, we're opening up to your own world. At the end of the school year, we started thinking about the multi-ethnic lunch. We asked these young people to ask their grandparents and then to bring their world back to us, especially for those who come from very distant places. And we asked them to share their traditions with us. So the fact of preparing food and have a restaurant, it was a way to start discovering their everyday life, which, well, in the first part of the year, these young people try to hide their traditional world. But when they are encouraged, they take out what they have to contribute. So in that great lunch at the end of the school year, we had the opportunity to really discover these young people who unexpectedly tried to propose things that we didn't know and to carry out activities that could be embarrassing for them. For instance, to wear their grandmother's traditional dress at school. So it's a way to show who they are, what is their identity. So the other chance for our teachers is to discover young people, because the only place where we can do something interesting is where we have this discovery. But also, according to our personal vocation as educator, we needed to have to learn something new, something interesting, and so to have an interesting world to discover, as I said. And there are so many surprises, from the typical dishes to the human aspects, the grandparents who thank us. So, well, the whole world is interesting. And this creates a link, a strong link, a strong relationship with these young people who realize that their teachers, their school, are really interested in them. They want to really understand who I am. And so in the following years, during the second and third year, young people started to trust us. And they say, okay, I can participate. Maybe I don't understand fully a certain activity, but I'll do it anyway because I trust you. You are daring me to do this. You're encouraging me to do this. So looking at this kind of education actually is based on a school and style, so to speak, which is that of everyday life, which is not based on words, but on experiences, on gestures, on moments that these young people recognize. And this is how we build this kind of trust that make it possible for teachers to participate at this great discovery. And in a certain way, we teachers then take a step back and let these young people develop. And they might start running, they might fall, and we need to show them that they have to accept this. So we have this new opportunity when opening up to the actors of the territory, so that we can have the schools participating in all this. And this is an important opportunity for us as well. So we enjoy the taste of life together with our students.
Devo ringraziare davvero perché
Thank you very much. I need to thank you. This morning we've had some testimonies of the fact that even coming from different areas, what is the real converging element is the passion for the person. I was deeply touched while I was listening to you, and this is why I'm so glad I had the opportunity to meet you, and I am glad that this encounter may continue, creating a network of relations. Visits. Valdobbiadene has its own weapons, and the same applies to Reggio Emilia, and the same applies to the Trentino area. So this could be the beginning of a work that can continue. Thank you very much for participating to this session.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.